I brought us in with you drinking.
Hi guys, we're back, and yes, I'm back in grand old Texas.
Tejas, we call it.
Uh,
You can come
Back
back
home.
though.
As soon as we have enough gas money, and I can convince Mr. Squirrely that we are not sleeping in the truck.
Did you actually sleep in the truck? I'm just gonna.
Yes, okay, we made it further back than he refused to stop driving. He would let me drive for a little bit, which honestly the truck did most of the driving, and it is so weird to sit there
No,
and with my
not
hand
happening.
twiddling my thumb. I was like, and we
That was
made it.
not happening with me.
We made it all the way back to Louisiana, passed through Baton Rouge at about, I don't know, 10:30 at night,
Oh dear
and got
God.
halfway across the Appalachia Bridge. And there's a visitor center in the swamp, and I wake up because I was done. I was like, I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep. He goes, if you want to keep driving, it's on you. He goes, okay, I'm fine. Like, we should stop at
Well, I
Buc-ee's for
mean, what's
some
hilarious
coffee.
is you left at what 7 in the morning. So you
Yes, we'd been in the
so
car for over
for
12
those
hours
watching,
by
yeah.
then.
So they left North Carolina at about 7 in the morning. That's impressive that you got to Louisiana, as I call it. Do you always have matching colors? I'm green. Are you green?
I'm kind of a teal.
Yeah, I thought no, there's no such thing as teal. Roy G. Biv, what color is it?
Blue.
All right. See, Angel, it's blue and green. But no, we don't coordinate on anything. We uh we just kind of do our thing, and
Except last week,
we did wear both our
we did wear
Boy
our
Meets
shirts,
Squirrel
which we
shirts.
have new. I did the new
I was going
design.
to ask you. Tell the audience about that.
Um, we recently had a bit of an issue with the Boy Meets Squirrel shirt design. Apparently, the squirrel that I drew is too reminiscent of a Disney squirrel, so I had to
They
redraw my
came for us.
squirrel. They came for us. Um, so the new shirt with the new logo, which is not Disney and is I'm in the process of copywriting that particular image. It's completely mine. Is in my merch store, which is either in my bio on TikTok or in my bio in on YouTube. And I have started making videos for YouTube, guys. Y'all have been asking for it. When are you going to be on YouTube? Now I
They're
am.
good
So
because I've been watching them all and liking them, and I haven't commented. Although I was telling you off air, I'm going to comment on that one as long as Eric won't kill me for it. But um,
you've met my husband. He's not going to kill you for it.
I can hold my own against him anyway. Although he's 30 years younger than me, but 20 actually. He's a great guy. But so she act just for anybody who wants to know, she actually does have a husband. I've seen him physically. He's a wonderful man. He's a saint for putting up with her. No, I'm only
You're not wrong though.
kidding. He reminds me of me a lot, just to say so. But yeah. So Angel's asking. Angel, yes. So he wanted to know if I changed rooms. So you didn't pick up on it last week too much, but
They
uh,
were distracted by the fact that we were in the same frame.
well, that and your beauty was distracting them on the screen. Aw. Um, really? I give you a compliment and that's where you go with it. Yes, I am in a completely new room. Lindsay has seen it. This is an addition I put on my house, about a third of which is my new studio. So you'll see the background behind me. It will move around because sometimes I'll use it one way, sometimes I'll use it another. But it's been 15 months in the making, but I finally got it done. So you no longer be able to pick on me about my pink room, which is actually orange salmon, but I go Roy G. Biv. And you won't have the seashell bedspread to make fun of anymore. Um, Lucky and Dino will make their way out here. They're still lay out on the bed, unless Lindsay took them when she left.
No, I
Um,
only stuffed Nutsy into my. Actually, I
cause
left Nutsy upstairs. Damn
oh,
it!
did you? Yeah,
Darn.
my granddaughters would not be happy if you took them. So, anyway, we are back in our respective homes, and we're gonna go somewhere we didn't intend on going. And I was really reluctant to go here, but I think it's important that we do. So we're gonna go political again. We did this
Sorry, guys.
what was it, about 3 weeks ago? We went political.
Yes.
But we're not going in political in the sense I don't care who you support. I don't want to hear about it. Okay. Whatever side you support, that's your business, not ours.
We're talking politics as a subject, not necessarily as a
We're not
argument for either side.
endorsing anyone, okay? But what I found interesting when we talked last time, and I've done videos on YouTube talking about the election and how it's affecting men. What I'm finding, and the reason I wanted to talk about it today, is we are seeing a fundamental change in politics. One that I think is going to be looked back on as a monumental shift. Somebody made a smart ass comment already. I
Yeah,
see you giggling.
Curtis is being a smartass over here in the
Oh, I
on
haven't looked at
YouTube.
those comments yet.
It says Dan for president. I don't think he's that.
Oh, hell no.
Hell no.
Oh, hell no. I'm
But
being blunt and honest.
if he did run, could I be your VP?
Absolutely, you would be my VP. Although Curtis would be a good VP choice too.
He would be.
I'd make Curtis sec def. That's where I'd put him. But what I'm finding, and I hope some of you are realizing this, especially the guys, if you notice, the two parties are starting to pay attention to men more so than I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm 61 years old. Country just said Dan for president too. You are not getting me to run for president, okay? I refuse to run for mayor. I refuse to run for city council, county boards, all those, board of ed. I won't do it. I'm too blunt, too honest. I actually did a whole video on that.
You're too straight for politics.
I am too.
You need to
one. I don't follow. Yeah, I don't follow either party. I'm in the middle. I agree with one party in some areas and the other in others, and that's the way I would vote if I were on, say, the city council. I would go based on the individual proposal, not whether I was a Democrat or Republican. If I were to run, I'd be a libertarian. I despise both parties. So if you want to know who I'm endorsing for the election, I'm not going to tell you because I don't endorse either party. I'll let Lindsay speak for herself. But what I'm actually excited about this election for all the rancor that's going on, and who isn't sick of all the commercials. But I'm really starting to see panic on one side, on the Democratic side, like, oh crap, we pissed off all the men and they're bailing on us, especially the black men and Hispanic men. And I have insiders in politics with both parties, but primarily on the Republican side, and they're seeing things that they've never seen before. Democrats are seeing it as well. And it goes to, they've always taken men for granted, both parties, and that they're going to vote certain ways. And that is all
for the most ridiculous reasons.
Yes.
I despise the games that both parties play. You fit into this category, or you have this trait. For me, for example, I always get told that I'm, and for the most part, on first blush, they assume that I am a Democrat because I am a woman, and then something comes out of my mouth, and they assume that I am a Christian conservative housewife, which is. So I'm sorry. Always
no,
makes
I have to laugh too.
It always makes me laugh. I'm like, no. They always pigeonhole people based on the most arbitrary characteristics and assume that because you have a certain characteristic, your skin color, your sex, your orientation, any of that, you're going to vote a certain way. And a lot of people are starting to say, no, we're not. We're not going to do what you tell us we should do. We're going to use our brain and vote our conscience, which is what you should be doing in the first place. But yeah, it's happening on both sides, but it's happening more on one side than the other.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm not black, obviously, neither is Lindsay, but a couple people have commented, black men are leaving the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party is in panic over it. And again, I'm not saying one party's better than the other. What we're talking about is the dynamic within, because, as I said, men have been ignored electorally by both parties, frankly, my entire lifetime. I cannot think of a time where they actually addressed men's issues. Not one time. In this particular case, one party is pushing women's issues, but one issue in particular, and I don't want to have a discussion on that issue either. But what's happening is they've pushed that so hard that men are going, yeah, I don't want to hear it anymore, right? What about us? And if there's any black men on that, put in the comments where you're at with it, because I've talked to a couple of friends that I have that are black, and they are like, yeah, I'm not voting, right? So they're not saying they're going to vote for the other side. They're saying that I'm not voting, which I don't agree with, by the way. I think everyone should vote. Um, but it's very interesting to see, and what eyes on it, right? We have got their attention now. Both parties, by the way, right? Um, they are like, oh crap, we better start talking to the men. This is a chance for us, or and the women who support us, to stand up, speak out, and get in their face and ask them, where do you stand on various men's issues? You
I
reading all the
think
comments?
yes, but also formulating a response here. The parties in general, not when we're not talking about the voters, the actual people. We're talking about those that have already been elected or are in charge of the individual parties.
Mhm.
Um, I think that in many cases, I'm seeing with men is, especially in the last 4 years, is you can only be vilified for so long before you say, be blamed for everything before you say, fuck it, I'm done.
Yep.
And it's another facet of men walking away. They're not only abandoning the marriage mart and dating and whatnot, now they're saying you F it to politics as well. And I don't blame them, because some of the ads that are out there, not just for the presidential race, but just here in South Central Texas, all you hear about is the poor single mothers and how horrible fathers are walking away and abandoning their children, and how dare they. And the men here, which I live in, I'm unique in the fact that they're whites are the minority here. We're like 65% Hispanic in my area. And they hate all of it. Both sides are, and both sides are guilty of it. Of trying to pander and say that, oh, we care about single mothers, we care about this, men are the problem. And the men are saying, well, screw that.
Yeah. They're revolting back on
They're
it. Like,
revolting.
yeah. And by the way, long past time that we did, right? It's, it's interesting to see. And again, I don't want to speak for black men because I'm not a black man, but I've talked to enough of them. I have friends who are black, and we've had discussions about it. They, in particular, are really pissed off. At least, and again, I'm talking about my friends, but I'm also seeing it online. Oh boy, Princess sent a hat and mustache. Lindsay, go.
Yeah.
That's one. I'm looking for 5 overall. You're all right. Thank you for the heart. Princess also sent a finger thing, like drop, sent a rose. But what I'm really excited about this, because, as I said, I've been doing this many times. I've talked about for 30 years. I've spoken to politicians for 3 decades now. And to a man and woman, the politicians will tell you they hear about 1,000 to 1 about women's issues versus men, which is why they focus on them, right? It's not, people think it's because they hate men or they don't care about men. No, there are some that exactly that. I could name names in New York, but the reality is their sole goal in life is to get reelected. That's it. They don't care about their constituents. They'll tell you they do. And there are some that genuinely do, but the majority of them, it's all about getting elected or reelected. And when they hear from 1,000 women and one guy, and by the way, that one guy is usually screaming and yelling at them. He's not making a coherent argument about anything. Of course, they're going to focus on the women. They've been blinded to it. That's changing because men are starting to step up. And I have to give a ton of credit to a lot of content creators who are black men standing up and speaking out, going, what about us, in various forms. And I applaud the hell out of them.
There's one creator, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he made a white privilege card and has a big jacked up truck. I've seen it. I've seen the truck he's been at Buc-ee's before, which, if those of you who don't know what Buc-ee's is, it's basically redneck Mecca, and every year we have to go pay homage to it. But big, like you would not expect this big truck that says white man on the back, and out pops this. And he's made a successful business out of it.
Successful business, huh?
Successful business out of poking fun at the blame that is being thrown around by certain parties. The Democrats are a little bit more guilty of it than the Republicans, but I'm
Wow,
reading that.
yeah. So Theo, first of all, thank you for the contribution. But Theo. I'm genuinely appreciative that you put that comment up on YouTube. For those of you who are elsewhere, I'm a leader in the Black Manosphere under Kevin Samuels' group, and easily I would say about 80% of my group of over 700 black men are voting against the Dems. And as he said, he's never seen this before. That's out from the media, most of that's complete crap. There are internal polls, and I have access to some of them. And the internal polls are, I don't know if it's quite as much as what you're saying, Theo, but I was talking with Lindsay off air beforehand. Generally speaking, loosely speaking, the Democratic Party has gotten 92% of the black vote, male, men and women overall, right? If you combine it, they're saying internally, by they, I mean people doing internal polls, that number may drop to 70% or 75 or 80. That may not sound like a huge change. It is a monumental change. And again, this is not about which party's better or which candidate's better. This is about men are now being heard, and we have to get out and vote. I don't care who you vote for, right? I really don't. You vote for who you think is best for you. Don't vote party line is the one thing I would say to people, because I don't. I look at the particular candidates primarily on men's issues. I have reached out to all of the candidates running for office that I have the opportunity to vote for, and I've asked them specific questions. I've gotten answers from some. I've not gotten answers from others. Both parties, by the way. Same thing, right? Some have responded, some haven't. I will be voting largely based on those responses, because that's what's important to me. Things like questions I would ask, like, would you support funding for a men's domestic violence shelter in North Carolina? There are none. Would you support things like addressing the failure of the current education system to address boys lagging behind? Things like that, right? I have a whole list of questions, and I can share them, not here, but I'll share them later on. When you start getting that conversation going, this is going to be looked back on, if we take it, vote, and move forward with it, as a game changer.
And I think it comes back to, again, that the reason why the politicians are now paying attention to us is
because they're worried about losing.
well, yeah, they're worried about losing. There's a wonderful line from, I believe it's the American president. It says they're all so busy trying. Michael J. Fox said, they're all so busy trying to keep their job, they're not doing their job, and that's true of anyone in politics, from the down to the city level all the way up to the
all they care about
federal level.
Yep.
So you need to look at their platforms. You need to look at their voting history, which is all public, by the way. I've gotten to several debates with people who say, "Well, look what all they've done." I'm like, "What have they done?
What have they done?" Yeah.
We're talking more local, for me, more local than anything else. They're like, "Well, what have they done? What have they done, and what they've done the impact?" Because there's a lovely phrase, I'm sure all of you have heard of it, called "the road to hell is paved with good intentions." The bill says this, and it's supposed to do this, but it does the opposite. Mm-hmm. And so they say, "Well, we did this," and go, "No, you tried to do this and failed miserably. So, and then you want to do more of that. So you're going to fail even more miserably because the first 8 times wasn't good enough." You need to look at that, and you need to use your voice for good. But one of the things that is interesting enough is that the absence of something can sometimes be felt more than the presence of something. This is what Dan was talking about. And he says that both parties have taken for granted the fact that men are always going to be there and they're always going to vote a certain way or for a certain candidate. And now they're taking themselves out of the equation. And someone, for example, that like Dan's met my husband. He's not a big into like the feng shui, whatever, when I move stuff around.
No,
He,
he's
in other
not.
words, he won't notice that I did that. He won't notice that I've done something with my hair or whatever. But if I move a chair, he'd be like, there was a chair here.
Yeah, he'll
Never
notice
sat
that.
never sat there before, never
Yep.
used that
Yep.
chair, never done anything, but he'll notice that it's not there anymore. So the absence of something that used to be there that was taken advantage of, or he'll walk into the kitchen and I've taken something down. Christmas decorations, another one. He gets so used to them being there that when the holiday season is over and I take all the direct, he doesn't automatically notice that they're down. He'll just walk into the kitchen going, something is not right. Something was here that is not here anymore. And that's what's happening. We see what's happening is that they are noticing the absence. And because they're all about getting reelected and keeping their jobs, they're like, wait, all these people are disappearing. Wait, we should probably do something about this and pay attention to them. Wait, because without them, we're screwed. Which
They're not. Yeah, they won't get along.
I'm personally happy with them being a little bit panicky and a little bit worried about actually having to do the things they promise they are going to do in order to keep the jobs that they want so badly. But I'm actually quite proud of men. I still think that, well, I'm always proud of men, but for this, I'm proud that y'all have caused enough of an upstir quietly by not
quietly, but not so quietly. They're starting. See, you're right. It was quiet at first, right?
Well, it's from a whisper to a low, dull roar right now, like thunder rolling in the distance and coming closer. And all I can think of is now thunder rolls. That should be the new.
I wish I had the ability to play thunder right now because that would be appropriate. So Theo, as he mentioned, he's in a group. Over 700 black men are voting against Dems. Theo, if you're still on, I'm curious, what are they saying as their reasoning? Do they feel abandoned? Because that's what I'm hearing online. Online is online, right? But that's where I'm curious about that because, and it kind of goes into another thing I wanted to bring up, which is so many men will say to me when I start talking about get out and vote, well, there's no point in it. The women control the vote because they outnumber men. That is such a fallacy, guys. Yes, there are more women voters than men. The number is not as big as you think it is. And I hate to break this to you, and I know it's going to come as a shock to you, but not every woman votes the same way.
And according to, I don't know if anyone's watched my latest YouTube video, but I kind of go into this, and not every woman votes the way her husband votes, for example. And that's another thing I see happening is a lot of people on both sides assume that, again, based on your marital situation, oh, well, they're going to do this or they're going to do that. But and I've been saying for a while that women have a large stake of the election when I vote back, or not vote back, but clap back at feminists about how they say, well, women have no say in politics. So you're kidding, right? We're half the vote.
Yeah.
Now that
according to politicians, by the way, they're all the vote.
They're all the vote.
They used to think that way. They're not thinking that way anymore.
But interestingly enough, by men taking their votes out of the equation, you're doing a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you're saying, I'm not going to vote because women have the majority vote. It doesn't matter. You take yourself out of the equation. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are proving that correct, because now who's going to fill that place? You're unbalancing the equation. And if men continue to take themselves out of the vote and just refuse to vote for anyone, and if you don't like either parties, I don't care if you write in, Elmo in a write-in vote. At least that's something. Or choose a different party, or
look at a third party.
Look at a third party candidate.
There are some good ones out there, by the way.
It doesn't have to be R or D.
That's the problem, is people tend to vote one way or the other.
Yeah, they tend to vote one way or the other. They don't tend to look at other systems. But I would rather. I don't want women to have the majority of vote. No side over the other should have a majority vote.
But they don't, Lindsay.
But they don't. But they will. They will if men continue.
If men don't vote, exactly.
If men don't vote.
So Theo's over. Thank you, Theo, by the way, for responding. So he said mandatory paternity testing is a major issue. And I would say in my group, at least 90% are MGTOW and 80% are passport bros. Within the next 3 years, black men who earn over $100,000 will leave the U.S. It's funny because I pulled up the questions that I've been asking politicians. Paternity fraud is one of them, right? So, and mandatory paternity testing. So, one of the questions, and I'll just read it. The most recent data shows, this is what I send to both parties, by the way. The most recent data shows that roughly 1/3 of all DNA tests being done to verify paternity is finding the named father is, in fact, not the actual biological father. Additionally, recent studies have found that as much as 10 to 12% of all children are not being raised by their actual biological father, in other words, paternity fraud, but by a man who believes he is their father. As such, do you support mandatory DNA testing at birth to determine if the named father is the actual father to ensure the child and the named father are not duped? I have, by the way, I've sent that to easily 40 politicians. Not one of them has responded to that one. Now, does that mean they don't support doing it? They may, but they're not going to say it publicly. The ones that are against it, interestingly enough, are not responding either. Previously, because I've sent that question out in prior elections, I have gotten responses, and it's usually along the lines of there's. So again, that's how when you reach out to a politician and you ask them a question like that, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I was screwed," blah blah blah. You hate men, but they're not going to listen to that. A question like that's going to hit them right between the eyes. Now, let me be blunt with y'all. It's not the actual politician that's reading; it's their aides. More often than not, if you send it through a website, it's some college intern they got. They're not even paying. But that's how you get their attention. And then another question I said, paternity fraud, naming a man as a father of a child, knowing full well he isn't, or that another man might be, this is unique to North Carolina. It's not labeled specifically as a crime in our state. At most, if it is chosen to be prosecuted, which is rare, it is treated as fraud and usually prosecuted as a misdemeanor. Do you support the passage of law making it an actual named crime and the application of a mandatory sentencing guideline for committing said crime to reduce the large number of instances of paternity fraud and protect the rights of the defrauded child, the named parent, and the unnamed parent? Again, it's very specific. It addresses that issue that Theo brought up. That's how we're going to change it, guys. It's not just getting out and voting, which we all need to do, but we need to get to them and ask them those type of questions. They'll freak out. I'm telling you right now, because I've had it happen. I have had a couple of politicians respond on that and say, yes, they would support it at the state level. And that would be a state law. It's not, that's the other thing you have to learn is who runs for president as far as these type of rights is irrelevant. It's not even Congress, it's state law. So who you're voting for your state representatives matter more on these issues than anything else. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Local elections have more to do with your everyday rights and life than bigger elections. And I have had the same problem. We have guys coming around door to door pretty regularly right now, and every time someone knocks on my door and my dogs let me know that someone is there, and I open it up and it's a politician with a clipboard, because he's usually wearing for councilman or whatever, and he's got an aide in the background with the clipboard and notes, and they say, what are the 2 things you want on your ballot this year? And I ask for the same things every 2 times. I say a domestic violence shelter for men and boys and mandatory paternity test at birth. And the number of times I've seen these, and it's usually always a gentleman, eyes cross.
They freak out because they've never heard it before. That's what scares them. Wait a minute. Where's this?
Wait, what?
Especially coming from someone like Lindsay. What's this chick talking about? I know how their mind thinks because I've talked to those people, right? They're like, where the hell did this come from? They'll go, I don't. I'll get back to you.
The most recent one came the day after we got back. Well, the Monday after we got back, this past Monday. And I said, you know what, we need a shelter for men and boys. And they go, well, that you can have that. The domestic violence shelter said, no, you can't. There's only one in Texas, and that's in Dallas, that takes men and boys. But did you know that no women's shelter will take a boy over the age of 13? I said, so what if a mother is in an abusive relationship and the father is causing them harm, but she has a teenage son? She's not going to leave that teenage son alone with an abusive father. She's going to stay in that abusive situation. So actually, you're hurting women just as much as you're hurting men and boys. And I swear to God, he stared at me for 2 minutes straight, just like, you could hear, does not compute, error, 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 danger, Will Robinson. And then I had here's my card. I'll get back to you. And then
Exactly.
they ran away from me.
That's what it is. It strikes fear into
because
them.
they're like, shit, she came prepared with an answer. I said, I could give you a whole dissertation on this if you really wanted me to.
And what's funny though, Lindsay, is that particular person's just somebody going around doing it, right? But if you were to actually go to, let's say, your state senator or your state house rep or whatever they call it in Texas, and say, I want to sit down and talk to you and bring that issue up. Not via email. I want to sit down and talk to someone. You're probably not going to get the politician. Sometimes you will. You're probably going to get an aide, but that's where you can really make a difference. By the way, that's what the women's groups do. That's why they have the power they have. Men don't do it. And it's amazing when you ask a question or bring up a point, just like Lindsay talked about, they glaze over because they've never heard it before. Specific to the DV side, I'll give you the question that I've sent out to the politicians at every level. So there are, and by either one has replied to me. There are currently almost 2,000 domestic violence shelters in the U.S. for women. There are only 2 in the entire United States dedicated for men. One in Batesville, Arkansas, the other near Dallas, Texas. Additionally, over the past 30 years, the Violence Against Women Act has designated billions of dollars towards creating shelters and safe spaces for women, while largely ignoring and in some cases outright denying support and services for men. This despite the voluminous data that shows that men are victims of IPV at equal rates to women, and in some recent studies, more so, and I cite the studies. What are your thoughts on this issue, and how are you going to address it in your district? What I mean by your district is at their level. So if it's at the state level, are they going to come up with funding? If it's at the congressional level, are they going to come up for funding? Locally, are you going to provide a shelter, that thing? And what are your plans to address this inequity? Again, no anger, simply stating facts, and I have my support behind it. When you hit them between the eyes with that, that's how we bring about change, guys. We have the power to change things. It's starting, and we're seeing it. The 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 black men speaking up. Oh my God, I can't applaud them enough. They are doing great work because they are getting the conversation out there. More of us need to follow their lead.
And well, that's not only true of black men; it's true of all minority men. Really, the Hispanic
Oh,
men are
Hispanic
doing.
as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're pissed. Hispanic men particularly come from large families, most of which are in many cases matriarchal. They have the grandmother or the aunt who is in charge of the family. And even the women are pissed off because they're seeing a great deal of harm being done to their sons, not being allowed to see their grandchildren, which is a really big one. And so they're getting fired up, and they're coming out and it's not just the men in that particular community, it's also the whole community as a whole going, now wait a minute, because these policies that are being enacted are harming the whole community, and they're sick of it, and they're sick of being blamed for it. Of course, I live in a border state, and one of the things that people talk about is the people coming over the border, and the irony here is that the legal immigrants, the ones that came here and waited in line, are just as pissed off at both parties for the same reasons we're talking about. They feel like they were lied to, and they were, just like we were, and they're not voting the way that the local government thinks that they should, and has been spending thousands of dollars on all these TV campaigns telling them they should vote. And the
Treating them like children, by the way,
really,
when they're doing that. They really are, which is, I find it offensive. I can't even
it
imagine.
is patronizing.
Oh my God.
It is so patronizing. It's basically telling them, we're here to help you and guide your hand because you're too stupid to do it yourself.
Yeah, it blows my mind that they, and unfortunately, they're showing their true cards, right? They've taken those particular votes for granted all these years, which is why they're out pushing, I support women's rights. Okay, what about men's rights? Well, what do you mean? Or they get the condescending viewpoint because they've taken for granted that men are going to vote a certain way, either for or against them, by the way, right? Um, but what's happening now is men are speaking up, and as they're speaking up and raising these issues, like Theo mentioned, things like paternity fraud, domestic violence is a huge one. And I have other questions, and I'll read some of them in a little bit.
We
Somebody
had
mentioned false allegations. That's one of the questions I have.
we
How
had
are you going to address that?
the police chief commissioner, I believe, is up for reelection, or sheriff or something is coming around asking questions, because they had a town hall meet at our pool, and they wanted to talk about the community and what would be safer in their community. And I brought up the legal definition of R. I said I would like to see it changed to gender neutral. And I swear, well, not only did the guy look confused, but all of my neighbors were like, "What?"
Yeah, because they don't know.
Because they don't know. They'd never looked it up.
They assume it
They
says.
assume it says something,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. And that was an interesting conversation. I got to educate all my neighbors as to what the law says that R is. And they're like, "We didn't know that." I was like, "And whose fault is that?"
I've had politicians say, "What do you mean the law says that? It's supposed to be gender neutral." Like,
It's supposed to be.
yeah, where the law is written where a woman could never commit the crime, because that's what the feminists wanted it written at, so that then they can claim it's only men that do it, right? At various levels, and mention that to them, and they're like, "What do you mean? The law is gender neutral." No, it's not. Here's the law, because I'll pull it out of my backpack.
Or they'll even say that, it's written gender neutral. Said, okay, well, it's written gender neutral, but it's certainly not applied that way.
Applied, right? And
because there's a difference between how a law is worded and how is it applied. Because obviously, if it's worded a certain way, but it's not being enforced that way, well, then there's a problem with the enforcing, and we should probably fix that.
And what's even funnier, Lindsay, along those lines, is I've had politicians at the legislative. So we all know there's three parts of the government: executive, legislative, judicial. I've had politicians in the legislative branch whose job is to oversee the judicial say to me, "There's nothing we can do. We can't hold them accountable." It's your freaking job. It's literally in your job description. Here is, by the way, your job description. Oh, they get so mad about that. But it also strikes the point home, right? That we as men and women who advocate for us, like Lindsay, we need to be doing this stuff, because we have a unique opportunity here to bring about massive change. That's why I wanted to do this show. It's not about endorsing any candidate or saying one party's better than the other. It's about galvanizing men, because if the media is talking about it, trust me, I know the politicians are talking about it, both parties. We have an opportunity here, and we could blow it, because I've seen it blown before.
I really hope it's not. I hope that enough men are finally tired of getting shat on. The t-shirt I love the most is "We the People are pissed," and it doesn't matter who you're pissed at, but again, channel that anger into something productive. Do not just scream vitriol at this representative or that representative. That's not going to do anything.
That will backfire on you. They'll shut you right down. They won't listen to you. One of the things, like Impulse Realty, and I'm not picking on you, but you said your older generation of men, he's talking about DV, wouldn't utilize the resources. It would be years before they're fully used. No offense to you, but you're completely wrong. There isn't a day that goes by I don't hear from at least a dozen men saying, "Where can I go get help?" If help were available that they could trust, That's a fair point. We have to build the trust in it. They would use those resources. They would use it at a far higher level than anyone would ever know. Because I also hear from men all the time who've said, I went to this shelter and they turned me away. Or they said the best they can do is put me in the flea bag motel. Or they don't work with men. Call this one. And then you go to that one and they don't work with men. And they just round robin you around. Men will take advantage of it. Yes, you're right in the sense that it's going to take years before it's fully used, but it will snowball rapidly. Trust me, because I hear it every single day. And again, these when we bring these issues up and we talk about that and address it, we're not saying it to hurt anyone or put them down. It's to educate, right? There are millions of men who are victims of DV. Millions, because they're grossly undercounted. Let's say only 10% of them took advantage of help. Do you think that could bring about massive change for those men? Of course it could. So we don't want to make the argument that men aren't going to use it, because that's what the politicians they'll jump all over that. And the women's groups will flat out say it. So that's why you need to be careful with what you say with that.
Someone's asking down in the comments, what is paternity fraud? That is when someone who is not the father is either put down as the father, because in some states, not all states, but some states,
depends on the state law.
What's in the state law, a mother can just put anything she wants on that line, and he is legally liable for the financial care of that child, not necessarily the actual being a dad. But the financial care, and signing away your parental rights does not sign away your financial responsibility to that child either.
Go ahead.
In many cases, other than just naming who isn't the father, it is also knowingly allowing the father who is not, who the mothers know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
in most cases.
Carnell, who's the godfather of paternity fraud, loosely defines it as, and I'm paraphrasing what he defines it as, but loosely defines it as the mother knows that the particular man may or may not be the father, meaning she knows who she's slept with. So it's incumbent on her to say to that man, you may be the father, you may not be. And if she doesn't do that, basically she's committing paternity fraud. It doesn't even have to go to the point it's that she is hiding the fact that there are other possibilities. Because what happened to Carnell was his wife said it was your kid, when in fact she was having an affair. And when that came out in court, she denied it. That's paternity fraud, right? It's why it needs to be mandatory, because the argument they make against paternity fraud is that it will shame or embarrass women or expose them for cheating. Like, that's a bad thing, right? What was that? Like a bell going off?
My child is throwing spoons.
The boys are active. But yeah, that's loosely defined as what paternity fraud is. If you go to various state laws, you're not going to find much. Some states do define it. Tennessee, I think, is one. Florida, Georgia, Ohio, maybe. I forget the state specifically. There are some states that have addressed it, but majority of them, it's not even covered. It's considered, if they were to prosecute it, North Carolina being one, it would be prosecuted under fraud law, which is not good enough. It doesn't specify it enough. That's why we need to have a specific law in every state addressing the issue, defining it, what it is, and the potential consequences of it. To various people have mentioned about how this needs to be law. The only way it's going to become law, guys, is if you start getting into the politics and talking to them. Again, with respect, show them respect. They deserve respect, by the way. I know we all hate politicians, but most of them I have talked to, even ones I don't like their stance on issues. They're human beings. If you sit down and you have a reasonable conversation, they'll at least listen to you. Doesn't mean they're going to agree with you, but they'll listen. That's all I have ever asked from a politician. At least listen to me. If you blow me off after that, then, I can use that against you, and I will, and I tell them that. But I respect them at that point because they listened to me.
I'm sorry, I'm reading comments.
No, I wanted to mention Leo's child support is another major issue, especially when DNA tests are false. Yet he must pay. Black men feel patronized by the Dems, especially Obama. There's real anger. I was talking with Lindsay off air and asked her if she saw that Obama speech. That's actually what triggered this show. I saw that. I am not a black man, obviously. Okay, I'm as white as
You're
white can be.
not?
I know. I was appalled, not for men, for black men, because it was so condescending the way he spoke to them. And I was like, dude, you think they're going to respond to that? And Obama is not a dumb guy. He's a brilliant guy, right? Whatever you think of him as a president, we have to acknowledge he's a very intelligent man. And for him to spew what he was spewing, I'm like, that's their taking for granted the men's vote in general and the black man's vote in particular. And that's where we have an opportunity. So it's not going to do any good if I do. But I hope some of the powers that be in the black men movement, someone like Theo, reach out to Obama and say, I want to sit down with you and have a discussion on this and really explain it to you. There's the opportunity. I'm not defending Obama, but if we don't then educate him and have a conversation with him, then it's our fault, not his, right?
Well,
We've never done that. My dog's going crazy right now. The neighbor's cat's walking by.
it's the same way that politicians, particularly one who is running for president right now, speaks to women, the way that they condescend to women. And in a similar fashion, well, the women will sit there and say, well, F you, and then we'll vote out of spite.
Mm-hmm.
Women, the two worst qualities of women, and this is universal, is we are spiteful and we are vindictive. All of us are guilty of it to some degree, some of us more than others. And we don't like being condescended to. The one that's going around now, and the one that my latest YouTube video was up about, is this: you don't have to vote. Women with Republican husbands don't have to vote the way they tell us to.
You stole that one on me, by the way, and you said everything I was going to say, so I can't use it now.
Women vote for me because we share a body part, which is the stupidest reason to vote for anyone ever, by the way. But I can imagine, and then blaming us if we don't vote for her. We are condemning ourselves to live under, in the Handmaid's Tale. And I'm like, excuse me? And if that's what they're doing to us, who supposedly they cater to us, I can only imagine the just patronizing, for lack of a better word, the bigotry of low expectations that is going around towards men right now. They're just condescending, patronizing. You need to vote for who we tell you to because we decided we know what's best for you because you're too dumb to decide that on your own. And while the Democratic Party in this particular election is more guilty of it than the other side, there have been plenty have been plenty of elections in other years, and not only in the presidential election, the Dems are more guilty of it. Here locally, at least in my local area, both parties are equally guilty of it here at the local level, of trying to condescend to us and say that because we're women, we need to vote a certain way because we've decided we know what's better for you. And if you're Hispanic, you need to vote a certain way because we've decided we know what's better for you. And most of the people are sitting there going, no. Like...
Well, in general, politicians think we're all idiots. They really do. I mean, and again, let me rephrase that, because it's not necessarily the politicians, it's people running their campaigns, which are two different animals, by the way, right? I talk to campaign managers all the time behind the scenes. Oh God, some of them are so delusional, it's not funny. A lot of them went to Ivy League schools. They've come from backgrounds that they've never had to worry about, say, paying for their groceries or something like that. They have no idea what the average person goes through, yet they're running these campaigns. And that's why the things are being said that are being said. Real quick, because we're about 50 minutes in. Hey, if you're enjoying this, give us the like, the thumbs up, the heart, all those things. If you're on TikTok, share this out. They are throttling it, although we haven't gotten dinged yet. So we're doing good for once, Lindsay. I don't know why.
Knock on wood.
And tell all your friends about this because we talk about men's and boys issues. We're here every Wednesday from 4 to 5:30. I want to get back and address something that Impulse asked over on Instagram, which is how can I become an advocate in my state for men? It's very simple. Pick up the phone, call the local candidates, and say, I would like to sit down with you for 1 hour. Again, set your expectations realistically. You may not speak to the actual candidate, but you will probably be offered an opportunity to at least speak with an aide. And in my experience, having done this for 30 years, the aides usually drive what the candidate believes or says. Okay. You get the right aide, you'll turn a candidate's vote. I've seen it happen. Okay. That's how you're going to do it. Sending an email, yes, it's worthy to do. If that's all you do, fine. If that's all you can do, fine. But invest an hour out of your life, 1 hour, and go in and talk about whatever men's issue you want to talk about. It might be, like Theo said, child support or paternity fraud. It might be family court bias. There's a host of issues. You could talk about all of them. Don't go in with 10. 2 or 3 is usually what I would suggest. The best way to become an advocate in the state is to say, I want to sit down, meet with you, and I want to share some stories with you and share your personal story. The most effective thing the women's groups have done for 50 years now is do exactly that. They get a bunch of women, they go meet with an aide, and all these women tell how they were abused by their husbands. Boom. $1 billion just this year under Violence Against Women Act put back in just for women's shelters. 0 for men's shelters. Let that sink in. It's because they went in and talked about it. If we start doing that, we'll start getting money for shelters. Don't go in and be, screaming and yelling. Forget it. It's not going to get you anywhere. Go in polite. Dress nice, by the way. Don't go in and rip t-shirts and jeans. I'm not saying you got to put a 3-piece suit on either, but go in presentable because they're going to see you for who you are. There are times, by the way, that doesn't apply because I have brought guys in that worked in horrific jobs where they come in filthy. And I brought them in one time and it shocked the crap out of the person that we were meeting with because they took time out of their job to get there. That's how you become an advocate. And unless we all start doing something, we're going to blow this opportunity. We have the first time in my life, I can honestly say this, we have the chance to affect massive change. I know I'm soapboxing, sorry.
That's okay. It's nice to listen to you for a change instead of me. I think they're tired of listening to me.
I know. I feel like
reading some of the
some
of the comments.
Yeah, let me share another question that I have. This is one that most guys wouldn't think about. Currently, there are several government-funded agencies and task forces implemented at all levels to address the issues women face in today's society. Some examples would be the Task Force on Maternal Mental Health, the White House Initiative on Women's Health Research, the Office of Global Women's Issues, and the Presidential Gender Policy Council, all of which are focused on gender equality, but in reality are focused on bringing attention to the barriers faced by women and girls. There is nothing wrong with that, but there are no corresponding offices or governmental programs focused on bringing awareness to the issues faced by men at the local level. What would you do to address this inequality, and how would you go about doing it? Again, short, sweet, it's a full page, but short, sweet, to the point, no anger, and I have supporting things behind it. And when you do that, what are they going to say? Right? They could listen to you, nod their head, yeah, we'll look into it, and blow you up. That's when you go after them. But if we don't do that first step and ask that question, we've got no right to bitch.
Another thing that you can do to get involved is like with boys lagging behind in school is go to your local school board meeting. I raised a hell at our last one over the summer when I brought up the fact that boys were failing in almost all of the classes in my local district. And they're like, well, we're addressing all these programs. I'm like, yeah, with more freaking standardized tests have proven that boys cannot sit still long enough for 6 hours a day. especially little boys in the elementary school levels. And what are you doing to address that? You're just adding more tests, more standardized tests, more benchmarks. That's not helping. You've taken away classes like shop class, you've taken away mechanics classes, you've taken away classes geared towards boys' interests, but you keep implementing new ones for girls. Where's your studies on STEM? You're promoting all this, girls going into STEM, but you're not promoting, boys and girls
going
into
into
any.
HEAL. Well, the counter to STEM is HEAL, health, education, etc. Right. So administration, health, education, administration, and literature.
Our districts aren't promoting any of that. All they will do is STEM, and they've just recently they've turned STEM into STEAM because they've added the arts back into it, and I think that's just a little odd.
No offense to the artist, right?
No offense to the artist, but it's not really whatever. And hold on. It says okay, but Jane.
I just saw that one pop up. While you're reading that, just one more thing. I know he had sent me an email behind to my menneedtobeheard@gmail.com about a letter he sent to his local library. If you want to go ahead and put in the comments one more thing, what happened with that, because you met with the deputy director. There's a chance, right? There's an opportunity that man took to make a change, and I would love to hear what happened when you met with them. Go ahead, Lindsay. I know.
Okay, I'm assuming you're asking how many of these anecdotal stories about men and boys being abused is being made up for money, because there are women that are really being abused. Is that what you're saying? You're asking if they're being made up? Because what I get out of your question is that somehow men and boys suffering negates the fact that women and girls also suffer, which is absolutely asinine. Both suffer equally.
I'm confused. I got to be honest with you.
Well, she said,
I haven't read the comments, so so are they arguing that
she had asked how many of those stories were actually happened, were true, and how many were just true to get money? Okay, but where is the line between truth and lies? Because there are women who are really being abused. Yes, we're not saying that there are not women and girls out there being abused. There absolutely are.
And not one dime should be taken away from them.
And not one dime should be taken away from them.
We don't advocate for that.
It's not an either or. Women,
that's the point. Yes,
that's the point. Women and girls are being abused by men and women, by the way. In fact, the biggest perpetuator of child abuse against girls are their mothers, not their fathers.
See, when I hear this, yeah, go ahead.
And that's the thing that's the thing that politicians will always pull out is, okay, you want money to go to this project, so we have to steal from this. No, we're not. We're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. You have all this money, and you're advocating all this money to go to this cause, women and girls. That's great. Do not take a single cent from them. Can we please find an equal or half, or we would take even a quarter amount of money to go to this other cause?
So, yeah. So the Violence Against Women Act was just up for renewal this past spring and passed. They were given $1 billion for women's shelters, 0 for men. Let that sink in for a moment when you're making your argument, because it's being portrayed that we're going to try and stop domestic violence. Are we? Or are we only stopping it for one side? Are we making it political and gendered because that suits an agenda? I have argued against VEWA many times, not because it's not a good program or worthwhile, but because the funding is 100% to one gender. So even if you don't believe that many men are being abused, whatever number you want to throw out at me, shouldn't those men have services and help available to them? I have made the argument, Congresswomen. I'll throw a name under the bus. Kirsten Gillibrand, senator in New York. I met with her about 15 years ago and said to her, there is not a single domestic violence shelter for men in New York. And she made all these arguments about blah, blah, blah. And I said, are you saying there's no male victims of domestic violence? Oh, I never said that. I said, whatever number you have in your mind, don't you believe those men should get supported? Well, yeah. Okay. You support the Violence Against Women Act. Why would you not support a Violence Against Men Act? And I said to her, I forget the numbers then. It was like 1.3 billion. I'm talking 2008, 9, somewhere in there. You're willing to give them that. Give me 1.3 million. So I took 1% of that budget. I'll have a shelter in New York. You give me 1.3 million. And here we sit 15 years later, nothing. That's the point we make. I don't want one dime taken away from women. Not a single penny. And by the way, every advocate that I know of, reasonable one, says that same thing. We don't want
Yeah,
any
we're
money
not
taken
talking
away.
about the Andrew Tates of the world or the morons over
Yeah,
here on
they're idiots,
that
okay?
are saying women shouldn't vote. Um,
Oh, that's beyond. Don't even get me started. Let's not go there, Lindsay, because you're getting me really fired
no,
up.
I already put a couple people in timeout. One guy wouldn't stop mentioning a certain candidate and how much he hates him, and I'm like, guys, no.
We're not going with candidates right now. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is the issues men and boys face and how we can address them at the political level. That's what this is about. So if you're trying to push a candidate, ban them, Lindsay. I don't care.
So Jane, if you're down in the comments, I'm not attacking you. I'm honestly asking, do you honestly truly believe that it is an either or game? Because the argument that you were making that will, yes, there are some men out there that do lie on the internet or lie in general for sympathy points. I hate to break it to you, sweetheart, but there's lots of women out there that lie about being
No.
abused and being having horrible things happen to them uh, in order to get sympathy points. So if one side is guilty of it, the other side is just as guilty of it because some deplorable people, despicable people are despicable regardless of what gender they are. Toxicity is not only solely found in the male sex. And this idea that it must be either or, that politicians have made us, tricked us into thinking that it has to be either or.
Yeah, there's no gray area. And the truth of the matter is, whatever issue we want to throw out is all gray. There is, and the men are guilty of this as much. You know, you talk, Theo mentioned child support earlier. There are guys out there that believe there should never be child support. I can think of numerous reasons why there might be times to do that. Same thing, by the way, I put an article up on my website today, menneedtobeheard.com, about alimony. And I say in my article, yes, I do believe lifetime alimony for sure should be taken away. There's absolutely no reason to give someone lifetime alimony. Should we have it for maybe, say, up to 3 years for the stay-at-home mom? For, let's say, Lindsay, she's never getting divorced, but let's say hypothetically she did. She's been out of the workforce for, what, 10 years now?
Yes.
So, if God forbid she were to get divorced, I would say her husband should have to give her alimony for a period of time. I'm throwing out 3 years. You could argue 2, 4. I don't care. Let's say 3 years so that she could either go get an education or find a job that is suitable to support herself. That's fair. That's what alimony should be. Child support, same thing. If one parent is making way more than the other, no, it should not be at the rates it is. It should be based on what the child's actually needs are, but we should reflect that. We should also reflect things like how much time it goes. Because I know guys that see their kid 10% of the time because they choose to. Okay, well, that puts more of a burden on mom. So maybe dad needs to pay a little bit more.
So Jane clarified. She said that that no, I'm not trying to respond to you. Go away. I'm not talking to y'all guys. She said, I was just saying some women want to cash in where true abuse doesn't get heard. Yes, that falls under false allegations. Dan and I are actually writing a book about that. Women, like I said, sometimes women lie. And many of them will lie about certain things in order for a cash grab. And while they're doing that, real victims like myself get told no one will believe you by other women. By the way, I have never had a man not believe me. I have had women tell me that I deserved it and all the horrible bad things, or that it doesn't count because I didn't get sent to the hospital. I wasn't injured. I wasn't bleeding. Therefore I deserved it. But yes, there are some women that do lie. There's some men that lie too. And the people that lie, the false allegations, are one of the main reasons why actual victims don't get their day in court like they deserve, and why
Right.
predators go free, because the police are so busy, investigators are so busy chasing, because they have to treat every instance as though it is
And
true,
they should.
and as they should.
Right.
All right.
I got to jump on one if you don't mind. So Mike over on YouTube said the manosphere is a men's only space. Women have ruined MRA's groups. We don't need women's help or validation. Wrong. I'm gonna call you out, buddy. And the proof of it is sitting right in front of me on the screen, Lindsay. Okay. And I will tell you, having run men's groups, fathers' rights groups, having been involved with legislative uh, stuff, having done all that for 30 years, women do more than men do by a mile. It's not even close.
The fathers' rights movement was founded by one man and two women.
Women are the best allies for us because men will not do anything. They won't. I'm sorry. I'm telling all you guys right now, pick up the phone, call the candidates, because we're about to vote in what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right. If you haven't reached out to a candidate, pick up the phone today. Give me an hour of your time. Not me, yourself. Call those candidates' offices. You can find them. They're online. Or if you want, send them an email and say, I would like to know how you feel about whatever issue that matters to you. Child support, paternity fraud, doesn't matter. Or a couple of them. Don't go crazy with it. Stick to 1 or 2, maybe 3. But if you're not willing to do that, then you have no right to judge anyone else. I don't want to hear it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to be blunt with you. I get so frustrated by guys telling me what I need to do when I've put in more hours this week than they will their entire life.
Mr. Mike is saying I'm doing it for attention. Sweetie pie. If I were doing this
If
for
you're
attention,
that desperate for attention, give me a break.
I'd have OnlyFans if I was doing this for attention. I'm not. But you're lucky you can sit in your delusion and be wrong for all I care.
Oh my God, she wants attention. Don't kid. No, the one that wants attention, Mike, is you. What have you done, Mike? Tell me. Show me. Forget telling me. Show me. Because I know what Lindsay's done. I've seen it. She's here every single week. Where are you? Where's your podcast? Show me your videos where you've talked about men's issues.
Your essays.
If you can't do it, don't even begin to criticize Lindsay or any other woman that does it. That's my point. Those guys, people like that, I'm pissed. Can you tell? They are the reason we are where we are. Because,
and why we sometimes have to go,
and I know,
we go backwards.
I know Curtis is listening over on YouTube too. He's run into the same thing. These guys cause more damage, the Andrew Tate types, than
whom we all do not
any
agree.
women.
None of us. No true advocate that actually gives two shits about the people. The people that are doing it for attention. They will say the most outrageous things, and then they have nothing to back it up. So they'll say something, and it might be true, like the Pearls and the Andrew Tates of the world. Pearl is basically just a female Andrew Tate, and they'll say something, and while the statement itself is true, the problem that they're bringing to light is true, they offer no solution for it. True advocates will say, here's a problem, here's something we can do to fix the problem. The ones that are just agitating the water, just stirring the pot for clicks and views and likes and attention and money, they will not offer any solution. They'll rile people up, but then that's what they look for. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for actual solution to the problem. They just want to highlight the problem. And in the same way that women who are arguing with their husbands, all the dumb ones on the internet that are like, well, I told him what the problem was. Yeah, but you didn't offer any solution. Or I'm not happy. That's my favorite one. I'm not happy. Well, what are you doing about your unhappiness, Samantha? Well, my husband. No, I didn't say what your husband was doing. What are you doing about your unhappiness? Because happiness is a personal responsibility. It is not your partner's job. And it doesn't work in the relationship, and it doesn't work in advocacy either. If you want to actually do something about the problem other than just bitch about it, and you can quit your bitchery too, sir.
Bitchery. That's the second time you've used that term. You need to make that shirt. I want to give a shout out to OM and thank him for his contribution, but he also made a very interesting comment that I was not aware of. 74% of our cases in India are fake. Also, if a husband cheats, he faces 10 years in jail, but if a wife cheats, there is no jail time. If you want to see scary, I'm starting to look into what's going on in India. Australia is another one. And that's why I say to guys, just because you don't live in the States, other countries follow the States' lead. And whatever I always say, what them in 12 to 15 months. And it's proven time and again. We're seeing this type of stuff because, and we need to talk about it. We need to address, even though I'm in the US, I need to address what's happening in India because it affects all men, not just men in India. Because if India starts doing it and they start, making a big deal out of it, you'd think some legislator in Congress in the US might not try and introduce the same laws, or some state legislator. Absolutely, they will. Most of them don't have S for brains, so they copy other politicians. Uh, I
I
just want
will.
to go
I
ahead.
want to answer Jane's question real quick. She says the right partner can make a certain person happy. They should add to your happiness. They can add to your happiness. I love my husband to death. Dan thinks it's absolutely sickening how
Oh,
how
it's pathetic.
how we are together.
By the way, my wife is pissed at Lindsay because everywhere they went, they're holding hands. How long you guys been together?
21 years.
21 years, and they're still holding hands.
And he carried me somewhere.
And well, that too, but that was
Um,
more of a joke than anything. But
yes, that and the reason I bring this up is when I was my most unhappy, when I was clinically horribly depressed, there is not a damn thing that man could do to make me happy. I had to fix myself first. So this notion that the right partner can make you happy, no. The right partner can make you happier. They can compound your happiness exponentially because a happy person times a happy person makes more happy people. More endorphins, yay. But they cannot, if something is intrinsically broken in yourself, you are the person that needs to fix that. And blaming your spouse or blaming the men in your life because he didn't make me happy, it's not his job to make you happy. It's your job to make you happy and then find someone to go be happy with. That's all I'm going
all
to
right,
say. I'm done.
I want to address just one more thing, but before I do, that smartass showed up, and I say that because that's his name now, and sent us a hat and mustache. So
Yeehaw!
I think that's two. I need three more. We like five each time. And he sent a tiny diny. I don't have Dino with me, but roar there, because we promise we'll do that. I want to address just one more thing on YouTube because this man stepped up. Right, he had sent me an email. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I may be off a little bit on that, about an issue that was happening at his library and talking about a book that he was talking about. And he commented earlier and he was nice enough to kind of fill me in here. So I want to just let you guys know how making one call can bring about change. He said, he brought up the fact that the library has events for women only. And he had spoken about having a men's only support group and being rejected. The person that runs the library, and I forget the title, said he would look into changing those policies. Let that sink in. That's a win. Even though he hasn't got an answer yet, he's got him thinking about it. He also had, allowing women's only and men's only groups to use the library room. Regarding that book, I had requested that they carry multiple times about solutions to anti-misandry from Dr. T. Hanson Johnson, a book I have not read yet, by the way. He looked it up while we were talking to get all the needed information to order it. Regarding all of their campaigns for DV Awareness Month, he acknowledged the bias and even, I'm trying to scroll fast enough here, and even asked me for book recommendations on male victims, as well as instructing all branches to have equal materials for men and women victims. Round of applause, my friend. That's one person making a dramatic change. One phone call is all it took, or in this case, one email. That's how you do it, gentlemen and ladies, because I don't want to leave the ladies out of it, because they're better at lobbying than men are. This is the point of this whole show, guys. That's how you bring about change, all right? I've had some victories. We got visitation, that term changed in New York to parenting time. It may not seem like much, but it's a win. We have to celebrate those. If you want the bigger wins, things like family court reform, things like, an office for men's health at the federal level, because there is one for women. That's how we got to do it. We have to step up and start putting in the work. We have a I keep talking about this. We have a unique opportunity that I have never seen in 30 years of doing this. We have both parties' attention right now. They are wondering what the hell is happening with the men's vote, and they don't know what to do. The Democrats are responding by being condescending towards men. See how that works out for you, okay? The Republicans are doing what they always do, nothing, okay? That's why I can't stand either party. I'm just telling you right now. So if you support one or the other, don't base your vote on base it on the individual candidate and what they say and what they'll do. Taking a breath, go, Lindsay.
I'm just reading comments. There's a couple people over here that have been disenfranchised. Someone says, I have a 14-year-old son. I'm raising him to be a gentleman and a kind person. A huge number of the young ladies at his school give me nightmares with their insane behavior. Lindsay gives me hope. Thank you.
She gives me hope too. That's why my wife doesn't like. No, she likes you. I'm just, I'm kidding with that. She's like, damn it, I gotta start holding your hand. I'm like, no. But anyway, again, guys, I want you to focus on, if you haven't voted yet, I want you to spend some time and do some research. Reach out to candidates. You're probably not going to hear from most of them because they don't know what to do. At the presidential level, I hate to tell you, when it comes to most men's issues, there are exceptions like having an office for men's health, but most of them are, the president's got nothing to do with it. Congress does, because that's who puts the funding out for domestic violence shelters, for example. State level in particular, that's where the laws are written. Family court law, domestic violence law, every law is written at the state level. I shouldn't say every. The overwhelming majority. If you are not reaching out to the candidates in your state, in your area, running for a House seat, an assembly seat, depending on what you call it, a state Senate seat, asking them about issues that matter to you, you shouldn't be going out to vote yet. Raise those issues. They will get back to you. If they don't, they're telling you, F you. Do you want to vote for someone who you take 10 minutes out of your day, call their office and say, I'm just trying to get some information on where the candidate stands on this issue. If they can't reply to you, do you really think they're going to support you if they get elected? And it's both parties, by the way. That's my point. That's why I don't like either party.
We also have to remember, guys, that like we've said numerous times now, the federal level does not have that great of an impact in your day-to-day life. That is at a local level. So all the guys sitting there in the comment section saying, I'm done with this, I'm getting out, I'm not going to vote. Again, you're being complicit in your silence. It's my favorite damn phrase. You are allowing these things to continue because you're not using your voice. If you don't want to go talk to your candidate, doing nothing is going to do more harm than good, because all it takes for evil to prevail is when good men do nothing. And that includes saying nothing. It includes allowing injustices to continue. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if nothing else, those of you who are on TikTok are still on TikTok, make a video, point the phone at your face, say something, don't just scream, but write out a message that you think is or do a skit. And because that's what's working right now, right? That's one of the reasons why we have come this far, is because social media has allowed other people to finally hear the opposite side, because for the longest time, the only people that were allowed to speak were, unfortunately, the fairer sex. And I say fairer, but that we were the only ones doing the talking.
We've been doing good. Don't get us banned.
We were the only ones doing the talking. We were the only ones who were allowed a voice on the grand public scale. Well, then TikTok became a thing, and now YouTube has, the thing, and all of these social media outlets, now anyone can say pretty much whatever they want, with as long as they don't violate community guidelines.
Yeah, well.
But even that would be helpful. Getting the message out there, the people are listening and saying, "Hey, it's not just me," or "Hey, this, are really are an issues." That we need to be able to talk to each other. We also need to be able to get the message out there that, hey, we're not going to be quiet on this. By the way, saying I'm not for a candidate because or I'm going to not choose an ally because you only agree on this one issue, say fathers' rights or men's rights, men and boy issues. The people that the politician does not have to on either side. You do not have to like anything else that they do. But if they're willing to work with you on this one issue, then you should not discredit them or discard them because you don't happen to like whatever letter is in
Oh,
front of their name.
I
I've
can
heard
address.
that excuse
Oh,
so many times.
Let me address that, Lindsay, because I've talked about this many times before. 20 odd years ago, we were trying to get shared parenting in New York. We had 120 reps committed to vote for it out of roughly 150. Three quarters, they wouldn't let it out of committee. I had both Republicans and Democrats. I had people on both sides of the aisle I disagree with. But the fact that they were going to go for shared parenting, I supported them. In fact, my state assembly rep, I disagreed with on a lot of issues, but he was vehemently in support of passing shared parenting. He got my vote. I'm not saying you should be a single issue voter. I'm not a fan of that either. But when I look at the totality of it, I might have disagreed with 40% of what he stood for. I agreed with 60%. But oh, by the way, the big one that I cared about, he really agreed with. That's how you should vote. You know, Mark said there's only two parties, neither of them being any good. What else are we supposed to do? Research. Reach out to them. Because don't trust the media to tell you, or the commercials, by the way, the candidates are doing. Reach out to the campaigns and say, look, I have not made my decision on who I'm voting for. Okay? This is a
Them to convince you.
yeah. What? Why
Personally,
should
not with some ad that has been run
exactly
through 80 people, because that's targeted towards the broader group. Say, I want you to convince me personally. These are the things that are important to me. Where do you stand on them?
And oh, by the way, I'm going to tell all my friends where you stand on them. Put that little cat, not a threat. But I'll tell you right now what's happening is I have said to politicians that have answered me and said various things that I have over 500,000 followers on social media. I'm going to let them know where you stand. I got some interesting conversations after that. Because the last thing they want, Jeff, Attorney General running, Jeff, I'm not going to mention his last name. The last thing he wants me putting out there is that he doesn't care about men's issues. This guy's running for Attorney General. Okay? He didn't care squat about him. It wasn't him I talked to, by the way. It was an aide. All right? If you're in North Carolina, do not vote for him. Just saying. That's the one thing I'll put out there. Okay?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
But yes, the politicians, their ad campaigns, and again, this is at all levels, both sides, all parties, are targeted toward the broader group or whatever the media has decided.
You want me to put it a better way for you, Lindy? It's targeted for the idiots they know won't do any research.
Yes, it's targeted to the low information voter.
Which is the majority, by the way.
Winston Churchill's famous quote, the biggest, give me a minute, that squirrel is running off at a branch and I can't catch it. Argument against democracy is a 10-minute conversation with the average voter. Don't be a low information voter. And for those of you saying, well, how do we not be in low information? Google is free. Google is free.
Or DuckDuckGo is even better.
DuckDuckGo is better, actually. That's the one I use. But the information is out there. Go to a library. Yes, there's these wonderful places called libraries where you can use their internet if you don't have it. The information is out there. You just have to be willing to go get it. You have to care enough about an issue to get it, because I guess what the big thing that we're trying to explain here is that Monday morning quarterbacks who complain, well, this didn't go the way I wanted to, but what did you do about it? It's easy to bitch about it, to have more of your bitchcraft about this didn't do it this way. This didn't. Yes, I will totally make that a shirt.
Going there, you gotta make it a shirt. You have to, and wear it.
Quit with this, quit with that. They complain, but they don't offer any real solutions. And complaining about it will only get you so far. even with women's groups, and you got to give the women's groups credit for how far they've come as quickly. They're freaking
Geniuses at what they
brilliant
do.
at it. Not only did they complain loudly, but they also offered, we're mad about this, and this is what we want you to do about it. Men's groups, unfortunately, are saying, we're mad about this, but we don't have anything we want you to do.
Could you please do something?
Could you please do something?
And the politicians go, F you, and then they scream and yell. No, they're not going to do anything.
We could, but no. So yeah.
You know, it's again, I want to throw a shout out to just one more thing. Look at the change he made with his, you may say it's only a library. No, he's bringing about change to a local government institution. I hate to tell you, the libraries are run by the government, okay? Imagine now if that director of that library in 10 years decides to run for city council, because they do stuff like that. There are people that are in political office now that I knew when they were nobodies, right? They were aides or they were this. They carry that forward. That's how we change it. We're not reinventing the wheel, guys. This is exactly what the women's groups have done for 50 years, you know? And like Curtis and I are buddies, so I have to put that disclaimer out there. He is a politician. He's one of the good ones. And he's right. He says voting the issues is issues. Whatever issues matter to you, reach out to the candidates, because they're not going to talk about men's issues unless you ask them. The big one that's out there, we all know what one party is running on, women's rights. I'll leave it that. Raise the issue to these politicians. What about the other side of it? And I'll because we're running out of time. This is my question on that issue. Much attention has been brought to the rights of women to choose whether they want to be a parent or not. At the same time, there has been no discussion whatsoever about the rights of men to choose whether they want to be a parent or not. Women not only have the option to, the child, but they can give it up for adoption or surrender it under safe haven laws with absolutely no obligation to support the child any further. My questions: do you support men having the same choices, meaning they can walk away? Do you support men having the option to walk away from the responsibilities of parenthood like women can? Not just by but by taking their baby to a firehouse or other safe haven and being able to walk away, no questions asked. And the big one, the one that matters to me, do you support do you support codifying into law mandatory notification and first right of refusal to be granted to fathers of a child the mother wants to surrender? Because right now they can walk into a firehouse, the father doesn't even know about it. So that, again, I avoid the big issue, but I bring it in. And that's how you're going to bring about change. And you may agree or disagree with me on that stuff, but at least I'm doing something.
Yes, parenthood has become a right or decision predicated upon the will of the mother. And regardless of where I fall on that particular issue morally, it's not where most people think. If one side is granted a right, you have to allow the same privilege. Otherwise, you cannot sit there and stand on a platform and say, we're for equality, but only when it benefits us, because then that's not equality.
And then there's this little piece of paper you might have heard of called the Constitution. Which guarantees equal rights. Jesus. Oh. Ooh, we got this far without getting banned. I don't want to screw it up. All right, we got 1 minute left, Lindsay. So great conversation we've had. We're here every week from 4 to 5:30. We do not talk politics ever, except this week. Get out and vote. Do your research before you do. Come join us. If you've enjoyed this, please do us a favor. Like it. Even if you disagree with us, but you heard us out, like it, share it. One thing I want to mention that I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay is we are going to be moving this show to, there's already a YouTube channel created, Boy Meets Squirrel, in the very near future. So you need to go look up Boy Meets Squirrel, and I'll put links in the show notes afterward. And follow us there. We're already starting to put videos up. Lindsay doesn't know this, but her and I taped a video yesterday, and I put it up yesterday, or last week, and I put it up yesterday, talking about what we do. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to create this as a separate thing and blow it up. I want this thing syndicated. We'll be creating YouTube channel. Well, we already created YouTube. We'll be creating TikTok, all the other ones. Stay tuned. We'll let you know when it's going to happen, but it's coming. So make sure you follow us on those. If you're watching these on the various things now, you're on my channel. That's going to be created as a separate. Lindsay, how can they follow you? And I'll let you close it out.
I am Squirrel Girl 1988 on all of my channels. So on YouTube, Twitter, and or X, Instagram, and TikTok. I will confess I am not on X or Twitter very often. I have nothing to say on there, so I'm Twitter pated.
I get in. I get in. I go crazy for a week, and then I get out. But I say a lot of things on there I can't say anywhere else.
I am more active on TikTok, Instagram, and of course, I'm starting up my YouTube channel now. I would love to have. I only have 32 followers on my YouTube,
and I'm 3 of them.
He's 3 of them. I have my all 2, his different iterations.
I have my 2 dummy accounts and my main. Yeah. Yeah, and make sure you go and watch the videos, like them, comment on them, blah blah blah, because we're trying to help Lindsay expand her ability to do the amazing things she does and get the word out.
Yes, I would love to be able to be taken seriously when I call my congressman and not just hung up on. Because unlike Mr. Mike over here, who thinks that all women are a monolith, he said that women make up some...
I'm having a hard time not responding to it.
Voting block. That's the point. We don't make up the bit larger majority block.
He's gone. He's one of those.
But
wrap it up.
Yeah, so Squirrel Girl 1988 on all of my handles. I hope to see you there. Buy our shirts because our 10% of the profits go to not only you supporting me and my art, but also 10% of the profits go towards to Bill's thing. Damn it.
Daddy's house.
Daddy's house. Thank you. That squirrel fell out of the tree.
I know it did. It's a domestic violence shelter that our good friend Bill Corbett is trying to get open in Atlanta, Georgia. It's the blueprint for one for every state. We got to get that one open before we can work on other states, although I'm already working on North Carolina. So go support that as well. All right. Amazing show. Guys, thank you for watching. Lindsay, wrap it up.
I got nothing else to add. Bye, guys.